Have you ever listened to a band and thought that maybe they were a one-hit wonder? They had one song that everybody knows them for, and outside of that, you really couldn't name another song. Well, today's magic artist that I'm going to point out is a little bit like this. He's well known for one specific trick, but ultimately, he has a lot more to offer the magic community. And lucky for us as magic book lovers, Stephen Minch of Hermetic Press thought enough of his work to compile together some of the best of this artist's material into one almost 400-page book. The artist is Paul Curry, the book is Worlds Beyond, and the one-hit wonder that we know him so well for is, of course, Out of This World. In this episode of Erudite Magic, we're going to tackle all of these topics. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to make an informed decision about whether or not this book is for you, who it might appeal to, how much it costs, whether I think there's value in it, and even maybe a few tricks that I think are worth your consideration. But if you stick around to the end, I'm also going to discuss something that I think we can all learn from the life of Paul Curry, and I don't want you to miss out on that insight. Without any further ado, let's dive into our story. Paul Curry, as a magical creator, was largely active from the 40s through the 70s, and he's perhaps best known for his trick Out of This World. If you don't already know it, it's a miraculous card trick that Di Vernon once called the card trick of the century. It was also voted on in Hugard's Magic Monthly as the greatest card trick ever conceived. There is some controversy about that vote, but what isn't controversial is exactly how great this card trick is and how many successive variants have been created because of how powerful this card trick is. And it serves as a microcosm of the type of magic that you can expect from Paul Curry. That is, card tricks that have a mental flavor. In fact, you're going to find all kinds of card material, not just mental flavored card tricks. At the very beginning of this book, Paul is teaching some of his favorite sleights, several versions of double lifts, an extremely devious switch of cards when you're turning over cards on a table, a pass, and several other variants that will be useful to you if you decide to pursue card magic. From there, though, Paul starts to evolve what you're seeing in this book and jumps into tricks where cards are transposing, moving around. He even includes a few thread effects like the pack that cuts itself. There are your traditional card tricks where you're going to ask someone to choose a card and you find it. He even gives several interesting ways to reveal a thought of or chosen card. But he doesn't just stop there. He also gives you tricks that demonstrate mental powers, whether yours or your participants. Where I think a lot of erudite magicians will get value out of this book is if you live in that world between magic and mentalism. You do some card tricks and you're interested in pursuing something that really intrigues your participants by revealing their thoughts. This is a great book to help bridge that gap and introduce some items into your own work that will pair nicely with your usual card tricks. But don't assume that it's just card tricks in spite of that being what Mr. Curry is well known for. In here, he includes several tricks using money or coins. There are pieces towards the end of the book with rope. He has a couple of these other types of tricks in here, even though I would suggest that 75% or more of this material relates to cards. There are a few straight up pieces of mentalism, teaching you a center tear, a phone book test. There's also a neat effect with some blank business cards that are pre-numbered 1 through 9. You mix them up, put them down on the table with the writing side toward the table. Your participant gets to intuit which one they think might be number 1, touch that one, which one they think might be number 2, etc. And you label them as they do this. When you're all done, you show that they actually correctly intuited all 9 business cards in order. There's even a bill serial number reveal done with a pay envelope and a borrowed bill. The trick can be done close up, and it's definitely one I'm going to be adding into my close-up mentalism repertoire. This episode is being brought to you by Don's Magic and Books. If you don't already know the name Don Bursell, he's an online magic book dealer based out of Minnesota. He's been partnering with this channel for many years now, and in my opinion, it is a perfect pairing because I know you love magic books, Don loves finding and selling magic books, and he always does so at reasonable prices with fast and free shipping if you meet minimum thresholds in the United States. Of course, you can find new and in-print titles, but you can also find some rare and hard to find out-of-print titles on his website. I know personally I've purchased several books from Don that I couldn't find anywhere else, and certainly not for the prices that he was offering them. So no matter whether you're looking for something new or something old that you know belongs in your library, shop with the sponsor of this week's video, Don's Magic and Books. If you can handle a very slim amount of sleight of hand, then you can do most of these tricks. Nothing in here is going to require you to do something like a pharaoh shuffle under pressure or holding out multiple cards or anything like that. If you can handle a double lift, if you're willing to put the work into the switch that I talked about earlier, which is not that hard to do, or at the very worst, palm a card under great misdirection, then you can handle pretty much everything this book is going to throw at you. And as you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, who might this play for? I think that this type of magic that Paul Curry has written about and published here for you plays extremely well for gatherings of friends, family, or coworkers. I don't know that you're going to find your next professional routine, but I don't want you to think that's a diss on the material. This is slightly cerebral material, stuff that maybe takes a little longer to transpire. That's not to say that any of these tricks are long, but they're far better when you're already comfortable with the people you're with. You're not in a hurry to entertain them while they wait on their food or interrupting their conversation at a walk-around gig. Instead, they're here, you're sharing this time because they know that you do magic and they want to see something interesting. These tricks will play perfectly for those environments, which I know is a position many of us find ourselves in all the time. Now that we've talked a little bit about who this book is for, so you know whether or not you should even consider it, what about the value proposition of the book itself? It is, as I mentioned, almost 400 pages. There's a table of contents with all the tricks listed out and a small bibliography in the back. There are over 400 line drawings throughout the book. Most of them were done by Paul Curry, but there were also some supplementary drawings included. And in the end, you are getting 77 different items. It is a hardback with a dust jacket, and it retails for $60. The book was originally released in 2001 by Stephen Minch and Hermetic Press. He later sold all of his books and the company to Penguin Magic, who reprinted this after it being out of print for a long time in 2020. From my standpoint, if you're the kind of performer who likes to perform for family and friends and wants to try to bridge that gap between mentalism and card magic, then I think this makes for a great textbook to add to your collection. There's plenty to like between traditional card tricks like a transposition or a kissing card effect, all the way to straight up mentalism with items like the telephone book test, the center tear routine that he teaches, or any of the other myriad of possibilities in between on that spectrum. So what's the lesson that I learned from Paul Curry that I was talking about at the beginning of this episode? One of the more interesting facets, to me anyway, about Paul Curry is that he was not a professional magician. In fact, he never had more than a high school education, and he started off working in the mailroom for an insurance company. After publishing a few tricks in the 40s, he basically went silent for 27 years as he focused in on his career. But he didn't waste that time. He achieved the rank of vice president at that same insurance company and maintained his relationships with the magic community. Once he'd achieved what he needed to, he came back to magic and published many more excellent tricks that eventually gave us this book. The point and the lesson that I see that I think is important for us to remember is that you can have seasons with your magic. I think sometimes we get discouraged when we don't have the time that we want to dive into our libraries, or for whatever reason we just become less involved with magic. But it doesn't need to stay that way. Whether you're new to magic, returning to magic, or somewhere in between on that journey, recognize that it's okay to have ups and downs, ebbs and flows, and seasons with your magic. And like Paul Curry, you can always come back and continue to read, study, create, and perform excellent magic. Hopefully, I've encouraged you to become reacquainted with Paul Curry and recognize he's not just a one-hit wonder. He has a lot more to offer to the magic community, and the best of his material can be found in Worlds Beyond. If you're into these types of lifetime magic books, then you may want to check out this video where I break down some of my favorite lifetime magic books. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.